What the Tech is brought to you by Text Expander. Text Expander helps you communicate smarter. Visit textexpander.com/podcast for 20% off your first year.
What's the tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian, and we're back. We took a couple of weeks off for the summer, like we do every year, and we're back. And of course, I'm joined by the one, the only, Mr. Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
How are you, Andrew?
I'm hanging in. It's been a very eventful summer, I think, for everybody. My summer ended up becoming that I live in a construction zone because we started a project in March, and it somehow led into the entire summer. I mean, you just moved, right? Like, what was it, 2 years ago, Paul?
3 years ago. Yeah.
3 years ago. And it never ends. It never ends.
That's true.
You know, I think you had it pretty done at your other place, you know, because you lived there for so long. You had done everything you were going to do, and you were comfortable. Now, I'm in this thing where, like, every year we're just changing something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you ever really escape it. You can take some years off, you know, but the truth is, if you own a house, you're always going to be doing stuff, you know?
Yeah. So we just did the backyard. We finished, you know, we did the upstairs bathrooms for the kids. Now we hit the backyard, and we're like, oh, it'll be... We asked them, like, how long does it take? They're like, 2-3 weeks.
Did you
tops.
discover that your house is built on an Indian burial ground?
It is, actually.
Because I always kind of suspected that.
Well, it's possessed me for many years. No, but we find arrowheads constantly in the yard.
Yeah.
You know, so it's very possible. I forgot which tribe was here. I had this 2 weeks ago when we were talking about this. So we're done, though. Today's the last day of all the construction.
Dude, it's something like the Metusis.
It is. I think it's very similar. Yeah. It's something like that.
The Watusis. Something.
It's with an M. I know that. So it's been a very eventful summer. I mean, you know, now we're going to the fall. My wife is a teacher, so it looks like she's going back to school. She's there right now for a meeting, so we'll see what happens. But a lot happened this summer. We took a couple weeks off between everything that was going on. I thought it was a good time to start. End of August. Fall's on its way. Thank God. I want this year to end. I just want it gone. I want to wake up and it's 2021 and none of this happened. It was just a dream.
Yeah, it's like the end of the Bob Newhart show where he wakes up in bed and he's next to his wife from the previous show, and like the whole thing was a dream. That's how I want 2020 to be. Yep. Exactly.
That's what I think should happen. Guys, before we continue, of course, a lot of stuff we did not talk about over the last couple of weeks, so we're going to talk about that and kind of elaborate a little bit more, especially about the Duo device that people are very excited for and very upset over at the same time, the same people. And I find that to be the funniest part because we'll talk about it, because last week I saw the threads on Twitter and people were like, I absolutely love this, but the price is crazy. And then some people are justifying the price and hate the device. So we'll see what happens. But before we continue, I want to thank our great sponsor, and that's Text Expander. This is from the guys that work at SmileSoft. They do great stuff. And one of the things that I love about this is that you can supercharge your team's productivity with this. You could share your text and images. A whole new way of starting a conversation with Text Expander. What it does for me is streamlines how much time I waste filling in emails. One thing that I ended up having to do that I haven't done in a long time is start sending out emails to potential advertisers. Normally, we have an ad agency that does it, but in the climate that we're in, post-COVID, I've had to do a lot of the ad sales. Luckily for us, this was a tremendous tool. Instead of having to redo everything, I created shortcuts and customized the emails based on those shortcuts that I did with Text Expander, which is absolutely great. Text Expander works with Mac, Windows, Chrome, iPhone, iPad, and we have a great offer. Our show listeners get 20% off their first year when they go to textexpander.com/podcast. That's textexpander.com/podcast. You can go there, and I have to tell you, it's a great piece of software. I absolutely love them, and I've been using it for years. You could create also powerful snippets for anything, you know, depending on emails or just for messages, signatures, things like that, descriptions. Whenever you constantly having to write the same thing, great service, great company, great tool. Textexpander.com/podcast. Sign up there and get 20% off your first year. I want to thank Text Expander for supporting the show. So, Paul, we're going to have to backtrack a little bit because there's so much conversation I want to have with you.
Okay.
One being, and at the end of the show, I do want to talk about car tech because I bought a new car.
Right.
This is my first, a personal car, a car for me, not my wife.
Did I make an overcompensation joke yet? Because I feel like
you
I
did,
should.
But I'm sure you're going to be able to. I'm sure this is going to be. It's going to be a deep discussion once we talk about the car. But I want to talk about the Duo because I was surprised at how far along. I knew that we were looking at holiday, but it seems like it was a very complete package on what they did.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get your opinion. What do you think about this? We've discussed it obviously, but now now it's reality.
Sorry. My opinion is not positive or negative, and I just don't want to be misconstrued in this. I don't quite understand what the point of it is, and I don't feel that Microsoft has ever, to this day, effectively explained why they're making it and who it's for, like what problems it solves. When the issue here to me is like, well, it's not a phone, like you said exactly, but it is a phone, right? I mean, it is a phone. So it's what Microsoft likes to think of as a new type of device that replaces the device that's currently in your pocket. But the argument and does other things. And it's fair to say anyone can, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You have two screens. You could run two apps side by side, or you can have two views of the same app side by side. And you can drag and drop stuff between them or whatever. And in some instances, this will be easier / better than the experience of copying data between two apps or views in the same app on a single screen device. Like, yeah, okay, absolutely. But, is that stuff so important that we're going to give up the stuff that we cherish on a traditional phone today? The things, the reasons that why do people love phones so much? Like it doesn't do everything as well as a normal phone. So is the stuff that it does better, is it so much better that it kind of obviates the problems? And I mean, some people are going to try to make the case. There are always some people who love a thing and don't listen to the criticisms and think that it's wonderful, and that's fine. I mean, I just don't quite see the point of it, So like, I mean, when you think about a smartphone, what's the number one selling point in a smartphone these days? Probably the camera, right?
Yeah, the camera, thinner, faster.
Yeah. So this thing has a terrible camera, and it's like, well, okay. I mean, Microsoft is positioning it as a productivity device. And, again, to that, I just sort of say, well, okay, but is that more important than the stuff that we already care about with phones? And I don't think that it is.
The marketing for it is bizarre because the marketing is saying that it's an 8.1 display, 8.1 inch display. It is not. It's two 5.5, right? 5.6 inch displays. Separated by a bezel. Is this a reference device for them to kind of encourage a change? I'm very. You are right. It's a confusing device because it's running Android, which that's cool. That's great because I do think Microsoft does have a place in the mobile market with an Android-based phone. I definitely think that people will tell me no, but there is a place for this for sure.
Yeah, I like the idea. I like the idea of Microsoft making an Android device. I think if this is even a little bit successful, we're going to see other Microsoft Android devices. I've often pointed out that if the Android app ecosystem made this make sense, certainly Microsoft could help in this regard, that a Surface Pro class device running Android would be kind of interesting, keyboard, trackpad, whatever. I don't feel that they've ever made a good case for a dual screen device. Obviously it's kind of cool, I mean, that's not necessarily justification for making a product. But when you think about something that's going to replace your phone, we often talk about these devices that kind of are two-in-ones in the sense that they can replace two devices, right? So if this thing could replace your phone and a mini tablet or a tablet, does that make it worthwhile? And the answer would be yeah, except that most people already replace their tablet with a big phone. and it doesn't do everything that my phone does as good or better than what the phone already does. It does these other things, dual screen related productivity things. I think it's a tough year to launch something like this. We're all working from home, and another device that lets me do more work from wherever I am falls a little flat right now, frankly. I think we're all in need of a little escape from work. No one's really going on vacation. No one's traveling. No one's going out to eat. No one's going shopping. And here's another device that's going to tether me to what's going on at work. It's like, geez, like,
and also,
I don't know.
What company right now is going to deploy a fleet of these? You know what I mean? Like with everything that's going on, and you're forecasting with the expectation that you're not going to make the money that you were making. And at the $1,400 price tag,
well,
I think it's a cool device. I'm going to get my hands on one, right? I'm not gonna. I'm not looking to buy one, but I have an opportunity to have one sent to me to play around with. 100%, I'm going to welcome it, and I do want to play around. You don't.
I'm not spending my own money on one of these things.
No.
But here, look, I'll play devil's advocate. I mean, here's the one thing I'll say. So yeah, it's expensive. I kind of wish it was $9.99. I think they might have reached a broader audience at that price point. On the flip side, pardon the pun, Samsung's folding and flip devices are $2,000. That is much more advanced technology, but because it's a folding display, right? But it's also more likely to suffer from reliability issues. You get like a crumb in there or something, or ruin the screen, or it will screen with a snap. One of the nice things about Surface Duo is that it's kind of, maybe this hinge could have problems, but it's just two displays. It's slightly old fashioned, when you think about it, compared to a folding display. So it should be more reliable. I don't know, maybe. I don't know. You mentioned the 8-inch screen thing. You have it open flat. You're going to watch a movie like. Are you really going to watch a movie with like a line in the middle?
Yeah.
Is that how you're going to watch a movie? I mean, I don't know. I'm having a hard time with this one.
You know what the story of this device is going to be in about 10 years, when Paul, you and I are looking back. And still doing the show 10 years from now, you'll be in your 60s.
And we're either going to have been incredibly wrong or incredibly right.
I think the narrative is always going to be, they released a very unique idea, and it was just at the wrong time.
Yeah,
I think that'll be the narrative that talks how this device is going to be described.
That could be. Let me at least posit two possible outcomes here that are positive for Microsoft. One of them is just that, based on history, right? So Microsoft came out with the first Surface PC in 2012. It was a 16:9 tablet with a clip-on keyboard thing, with a kickstand that had exactly one position. You had one angle, and they positioned the webcam in it so that when it was back at that angle, it'd be looking right at you. It was that was kind of neat. But the keyboard cover that they thought was going to take off was this flat thing that had no keys you could press. It was like keys inlaid on. Remember the touch cover?
Terrible.
But the theory at the time, which, sounds reasonable on paper, is people are typing right now on the screen of an iPad. So with this thing, we can not cover the screen, and the typing experience will be at least as good as that, right? Plus, it will protect the screen when you're carrying it around. It's like, oh, that makes sense. Didn't make any sense. No one bought these things, right? So it took them until 2014, third generation Surface Pro, where they came out with a design that is today well known. It's kind of iconic, a little bit like the MacBook Air. 3x2 display. I don't know what you call it, but it's like, the kickstand can go to any angle. It sticks at any angle, all the way laying flat to all the way standing up straight. The keyboard cover that we have today and then is wonderful. The keyboard is great. The trackpad is great. The whole thing is great. It's the tablet that can replace your laptop. And so Surface and Panos Panay, the guy that runs Surface, and Microsoft, collectively created a new type of device. They didn't really, other companies had created these things before too, but they formalized this new form factor. They're really proud of this. And ever since then, they've been trying to do it again, and they've never done it. Surface Laptop is obviously just a laptop. Surface Book has got this ridiculous clip-off screen for some reason that nobody ever takes off. Surface Studio, all these other Surfaces, I love them. They're wonderful computers, but They've never done it again. And so they're trying to do it again with Surface Duo. But the other positive possibility for Microsoft is the HoloLens thing, right? So when HoloLens 1.0 first came out, they didn't have any use case for it. It was just like Surface Duo. It was like, we're going to put it out there and see what happens, At that time, they were saying, oh, maybe people will play games on this thing. Maybe, who knows what this thing will be. And what happened was certain vertical markets emerged where this thing was useful. NASA, car designers, like factory floor type things where someone like an expert who was, coming in remotely could see what you were seeing and then help you fix something, whatever. You could imagine like being on like an oil refinery or something where that would be useful.
Yeah.
And for HoloLens 2, what they had was this success behind them. They knew it worked. And now they could make it better for that stuff. And in HoloLens 2, I mean, I'm not saying it's a bestseller or anything, but I mean, HoloLens 2 has a place in the market. So it's possible with Surface Duo that by Gen 2 or 3, it could emulate the success that Microsoft saw previously with HoloLens, or to a greater degree, Surface Pro. And it turns into something that is truly useful, And we'll look back at that first version and say, oh, wasn't that cute? It didn't quite get it, but you can see the germ of the idea. And then, by V3 or whatever, it got good.
Listen,
maybe,
that could have been, that was very close to being the story of the iPad. If that first gen device continued in the second gen, it would have been a very, very similar discussion where like it was a cool concept, but it wasn't a great device. That first gen iPad was not great, but the reason why it took off is because the second gen was so much more refined than the first one.
Yeah, I have to say, it was incredible when they went from V1 to V2 on iPad, how much better it got. And the case too, remember how awful it was, like a condom case they had for the first one. It was terrible. And they came up with this magical thing with magnets that clipped on. It was awesome. Like they still use it today. It's nice.
Yeah. So
so
we'll
see. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm curious, but obviously the timing is going to be a big story about this device. But again, this may lead into something very different that we cannot guess yet. The concept of this device, I think there is a place for it. I just don't know if it's going to be this or a second or third gen device that really knocks it out the water. I find it fascinating that they've been so against entering the phone market again, but they essentially did do it in the most ass-backwards way ever, with a device that's a phone, but it's not a phone. But actually, there was a funny line in the chat room. It's a new, diverse Windows phone, not Windows Phone, but a phone-ish non-Windows thing. that
you gotta, seriously, you gotta look at what Surface does. I mean, and again, I think the Surface Pro example is the best one. The Surface Pro is really a tablet. It's a two. It's kind of a 2-in-1 because you can clip on a keyboard and it has a trackpad in it and becomes sort of a laptop, but it's not a laptop, right? It's a different take on the laptop. And for certain people, it's smaller, lighter, more portable. There are people who like to use the pen or want to, artists or writers, or not writers, but note takers, whatever, want to use the pen. Fantastic for those people. But it's a completely different take on the PC. It's like a 180 on the PC. It's very clear they want this to be that for the phone, right? It's kind of like a 180 take on the phone. And like Surface Pro, there are certain compromises. It's not necessarily lappable depending on your lap. In the Surface Pro case, it's a little constrained compared to a normal laptop. It's a little weird, and Surface Duo is going to have those problems. I feel like they're more amplified this time. Phones are so much more important to people than PCs are, and we spend so much time on our phones. And yes, I mean, certainly sometimes the ability to read a book that looks like a book is of no interest. I don't know what audience they think they're shooting for there. Like, that's just silly, but you'll be able to do that if that's what you want.
The Kindle audience.
We've often talked about, maps and the ability to see the map on a bigger screen and how useful that would be. If you're in a car and you could put that thing up on your dashboard, having that bigger screen would be nice. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And yeah, I guess if you're in a productivity situation, a student or something, and you're taking handwritten notes, and on one side, maybe you have like a web browser open on the other side or whatever. I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, sometimes maybe, but I just feel like there are other devices that do these things better, phones or actual computers. And sometimes the right tool for the job is, that means you have two different things. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I struggle with this one.
I do too. I have not seen too much. I have not seen too much press. Like I thought people would make fun of it as you know how the internet works. I'm not hearing much.
No, I wouldn't make fun of it. I'm honestly more concerned than I am. In other words, I'm not negative about it. There are certainly aspects to it from a personal technology perspective where I think this is interesting. Of course, it's interesting. It's you can't like personal tech and not be interested in it. I hope I don't come off as overtly negative. I'm more looking for answers.
Yeah.
I don't feel that Microsoft has ever made a compelling case for why anyone needs this thing. Why? Who is this for? What circumstances is this better for that person? Like, what problem does it solve? Like, there have been people out there in the world with phones, and they're like, "Oh, I wish this damn thing would do this thing." Where are those people? I don't see it. And if Surface Duo is some blockbuster success somehow, becomes the future of the phone, and people can look back and be like, "You were wrong," and it's like, I don't know if I was wrong. I just don't quite understand it. But yeah, iPad's a good example. Surface Pro, like I said, are HoloLens. I mean, it's possible over time people will get it, and some people will say, "Hey, look at this! It's really good for this." And if it is really good for that, and if that thing is very important to a lot of people, maybe more people will buy it, and maybe it,
I guess I don't know. Maybe
I don't know.
Maybe
it's such a weird thing. Well, like I'm trying to think of some example of this. Like iPad 2 is a great example. Like sometimes you see a product and you're like, "Yeah, that's awesome." Like the second MacBook Air was like that. It was like, "Holy crap! Look at that thing! He pulled it out of an envelope. It's awesome." I just like this one. It's like, it's kind of, look at that. It has two screens.
Yeah.
You're like, it's interesting.
It's not the first two screen device. That's the other problem.
Yeah. It's like Surface Pro in that way. A Surface Pro wasn't the first tablet computer. But it became successful enough that form factor, they kind of formalized that design. Lots of PC makers copied it. It became a thing. Microsoft would love for that to happen with Surface Duo. There's no doubt about it. Would love to be copied, But don't you also think that the natural end game for this device, let's say Surface Duo does pretty well. They have a couple of generations go by. Isn't the real end game for this to make it into a folding display device? I mean, isn't that really what the end game is? Yeah. So, we have to agree that this is a holding pattern until they can get to the point where they have a folding display. Have to agree, right? Like that has to be it.
Yeah, but we haven't seen then why release this now? Like we have foldable devices on the market, and guess what? The people's reaction to it isn't that great because they're not that reliable. There are issues. So now you're releasing one because you can't do it, because I'm sure they've tested with foldable displays and they're encountering a problem.
Yep. So Microsoft could, and they're not doing this, but maybe someday they will say, look, folding displays are certainly interesting for the future, just like flying cars are interesting. But before we get there, we have to have an electric car, or in this case, a 2-display device. And yeah, we're not the first guys to do it, but look, they're working with the 2-display stuff is technology built into Android. They have thus far contributed nothing to it. But what they say they're doing is working with Google to help decide what happens with future versions of Android with regards to dual display devices, and that there'll be further improvements over time. And of course, this device will take advantage of that because they'll be, upgraded to those future versions of Android. I don't know. Really, like I said, I guess if this was part of a family of devices, like if they had a, I don't know what size it would be. Like most people listening to this probably aren't familiar with the Surface Neo, but Microsoft had planned to release a Windows 10X device that was bigger. So probably maybe it was 2 8 or 9-inch displays. I don't remember the exact size. And you open that thing up and it becomes, it's like a laptop screen or even bigger. And they have like a slide-on keyboard thing at that point because this is a bigger device, and this turns into, a productivity device that maybe makes a little more sense. And I also think, like I said before, the Surface Pro form factor makes a lot of sense for Android, because especially if Microsoft, and they are doing this, optimizes its apps on Android to work well on a big screen, right? Where Outlook and Word and Excel look like they do on Windows, maybe, or at least somewhat close to that. That device becomes more interesting as a productivity device.
Well, the Neo
than a laptop.
The Neo is fascinating, right? I know that it's delayed right now, but that device fascinates me more because this is kind of showing
I'm
what
more
Microsoft
interested
is
in that
planning
one
on
too.
doing
Yep.
with Windows 10X.
Well, I would also say if that was Android based, I would still be more interested in it than Duo. Like that, I think most people are probably familiar with, for whatever reason, Android hasn't really succeeded in the tablet form factor for some. It's kind of hard to explain, but the apps don't tend to be adapted to that size like they are on the iPad. And the general level of refinement just hasn't been as high. Like Apple's just done a great job with that stuff, both on the hardware and the software, and convincing developers to go.
You know what, though? I brought that up to somebody, and he brought up an interesting fact. He goes, well, you got to look at the time that Apple did this, right? 2011, 2012 is when the iPad really took off.
Yep.
The app store that they had, the app maturity wasn't as much as it is today. Anybody that enters this game now, like if you're Google now, for example, and you want to create, we saw that they barely could do it with Chrome, with the Chromebooks converting these apps over.
Well, you got to remember that Chromebooks kind of happened or occurred, or what's the term I'm looking for? It sort of became like the tablet thing for Android because Android never worked, but there was a little period of time there. You could look this up. I don't remember the dates, but when they did the Nexus 7, there were 2 gens of that. This was a 7-inch form factor. Phenomenal. Awesome, right?
Awesome device.
And of course they're going to, and there was a Nexus 10 that was terrible, and then eventually they did like the Pixel C, which was terrible. And somewhere we got lost somewhere between 7 and 10, because at a 7-inch size, that you're running a phone app, it's just bigger, and that's cool. Like that's fine. But when you go up to 10 inches, you're turning the screen into a landscape perspective, and those apps need to adapt now to that thing. And for whatever reason, like that did happen on the iPad, and it never really happened on Android. Even today, probably no one. I don't have one now, but if you had a 10-inch Android tablet and you started, downloading apps from the Play Store, I bet a lot of them would just be blown up phone apps. Not all of them. Obviously. But
a lot of them are.
And even the ones that do probably look terrible. A lot of them.
It says something when you look at the App Store now, right? On the Android side and on the Apple side also. Like, do you remember when Evernote was the most used app in both app stores? Like it's so different now, right? The way that these apps are developed, what gets popular, what doesn't get popular. It really is a tremendous opportunity to make some money if you're an app developer and you throw everything plus the kitchen sink at the wall. But it was it's so matured now with app saturation that it's a totally different ballgame. And I think Microsoft entering this right now, Microsoft has an advantage adopting Android. They have a tremendous, because guess what? They have great apps on the platform.
Yeah.
Well-refined apps that,
so
other people can't do.
I think you're onto something there, because there was an interview with Panos Panay and actually Satya Nadella as well, where they were discussing this. And this is another one of those places where I'm kind of looking for like, okay, they're going to explain the rationale for it. And they don't really, right? So they asked him point blank, well, who is this for? And they literally said, Panos Panay said, it's for the Surface fan who lives in the Microsoft ecosystem. Now, that sounds ludicrous, in one way. But on the other hand, if Microsoft is adapting its apps on Android to work well on a tablet form factor, right? That means that even on Surface Duo in that 8-inch size, you've got, even though it would look goofy with the thing in the middle, you've got this screen where, it works more like a Windows app. And that's why I think a bigger screen device is going to make sense, because literally in the productivity space, there are people who live in the Microsoft ecosystem, right? You're running Outlook and Office, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You're running OneNote. You're using Teams. That's your world. Your files are in OneDrive. Why not? Why not have a simpler device that could have a keyboard on it and you can get real work done? I see the appeal of that.
But Paul,
what's that?
But here's an argument for this. Okay, you know who else a Microsoft base centric app device would work well for? Enterprise, and a great opportunity for you to deploy for you to deploy this in enterprise. I get it, but the argument for a Microsoft phone, a Surface phone, is pretty. I mean, it's there. And you know, you've seen every other manufacturer attempt this, right? Everybody's attempting it, and you're going to say, well, why would someone buy Microsoft? Microsoft has the apps. You know, if you're in that Office ecosystem, there you go. Everything is there. They could offer for free, and people would most likely use it. The other thing is, you know, and I'm just throwing an idea, something that is lacking on almost every single phone except for the iPhone is some sort of universal messaging service. Google has 18 of them. They've attempted this multiple times. Samsung has attempted, their own messaging service. Microsoft has services that they could deploy and have it universally working on every device, integrated within Windows, and there you go. Now you have your own Messages app, much like Apple.
Right.
And for some, that is those little nuances that people would kind of ignore become a major thing for people. You know, who would think that a messaging app would be a major seller for a laptop and
I
for
think if I understand what you're saying, you're saying that Microsoft needs to buy TikTok.
Yes. Well, Oracle may be buying TikTok, which is something.
Well, no,
else.
I'm thinking you could have like goofy animal video in the right pane, and then Word in the other pane, and that's the two sides of your personality, and it's fun and work all in one place.
Yeah. Yes. Why not? You could have Excel opened up. You could be doing a crazy, complicated spreadsheet, and then on top you could see somebody doing
a fox jumping on a trampoline.
Yeah.
So yeah. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. So I just look. I think with Surface Duo, this gen, the first product, I just, like I said, I'm having a problem with it. I'm leaving open the possibility that some use cases will emerge, and or that Microsoft will adapt the device in response to feedback and just to market needs, and that there will be other Android devices that maybe make more sense. And that, who knows? Look, it's not for me, I guess, at least not now. But if it were part of a family of devices, would it make more sense? Maybe.
Probably. Yeah,
maybe.
Talking about a family of devices on the Apple side, Apple made a boo-boo. They did a test stream for September 10th. I guess that's going to be the iPhone 12 event. It's going to be September 10th.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, on YouTube. Okay. They did a test stream and deleted it. And they put the date September 10th on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there any information other than the date?
They put it up. No, there was no other information other than the date. The date is September 10th. But it was 10th. Also last year's iPhone 11 event. So it could have just been that they used the same event for the test. But what is September?
It's a Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
It's kind of a weird day for an Apple event.
Yeah. Not
really. Was it like Monday or Tuesday now?
Yeah.
We'll see.
So either way, we're going to get an iPhone 12 this year. Now, it's not a big changeover, obviously. And even if it was, I think they would have held off due to manufacturing issues that they're probably going to face with this device.
I mean, there were rumors that it will be like a staged launch because of that. And
but it's a very interesting time, especially for technology and adapting new technology and the consumer, the purchase power of the consumer. We're not going to feel this. I think a lot of people listen, what's going on? It's terrible. It's bad, right? The world, it's forget about the political side, but I'm talking like financially, business wise, economy wise.
Yep.
We're hitting the fourth quarter. This is going to be a false pop. What happens in January?
Yeah.
That's the big question here. Obviously, these companies are going to show greater earnings, and they're going to say, well, blockbuster earnings for the year, they blew away the first and second quarter. I mean, there's going to be all this false verbiage.
Well, there should be good holiday stuff. I mean, I think what you're looking for next year is some sense of recovery that would be related to getting ahead of COVID somehow, whatever that means. I mean, it could be all kinds of things, but I don't know. This is a tough year. I mean, the funny thing it's not funny, but the weird thing this year has been, because we're all forced to work and learn from home, sales of devices that have been going downhill are suddenly surging, right? And so PCs and Chromebooks are really in demand. You can't buy a Chromebook now. It's kind of strange. I had a friend of mine reach out to me about Chromebooks, and I was like, "Yeah, I have a couple of Chromebooks or whatever." And he's like, "I can't find any of these. He couldn't buy any." And I'm like, "What?" I mean, to me, these things are worthless. But yeah, okay. So
Paul,
you know,
I couldn't buy a car.
You can't. Yeah,
I mean, I did,
too.
but I got a whole story on this. I mean, it's actually a little scary if you think about it. I mean, listen, it's gonna get.
Well,
I feel like these manufacturing issues, we haven't even seen the issues that we're gonna have. I think people are.
No, I think it's going to go up and down. You know, I think we're going to have. There'll be these signs of improvements, and they're going to be setbacks. You know, in everything. I mean, I think with regard to this COVID in general, this back to school month that has just started kicking off, and will go through the middle of September, is going to be a shit show. Like it's going to be a major setback. But with regards to all the other stuff, I mean, China got in that area, Asia got hit by this stuff first back in January, February. And, it recovered to some degree. I mean, it's obviously not 100%, but yeah, we'll see. It's just watching how Apple delivers their stuff is going to be very telling about
because
the reality of the market. Because this is a company that, burps out an iPhone in Shenzhen and delivers to your doorstep 2 days later.
Unbelievably, yeah.
It's unbelievable. On command. I mean, so they have a pretty good little system there. So we're going to see how that's impacted. It's going to be kind of interesting.
I think. Also, I'm curious what's going to happen to other tech sales. Like TVs. But these are big quarters for these companies, right? The television inventory, just in general, all cell phones.
All just reminded me of something.
Yes, sir.
I had forgotten about this. I had our house got hit by lightning a couple weeks ago, and we have all these reliability issues. So the problem we had at the beginning of the show is somehow related to this internet connectivity. So something is still wrong in my office, but we didn't lose our TV, but we two people on my circle did and lost their TVs because it affected the whole thing, and
just totally blew them out. Done.
Yeah. Yeah, the TVs are dead. They had to buy new TVs. And in my case, we lost our internet router and our internet connection got actually severed by it. But there are other problems like with the Ethernet, and it's just like there are things that are just off. My wife and I were walking the dog. It must have been this Tuesday. So just the other day, I guess. It feels like it was longer ago than that. Well, whatever Tuesday. We saw 7 boxes for TVs out in people's trash.
That's
in my neighborhood. 7. So obviously something happened to the whole area,
dude.
Because lots of new TVs were sold in my neighborhood.
Think about it this way: this is a very small. It happened in. Imagine if there's an EMP. On a large scale.
Oh my God! Yeah, that'd be the best thing that could happen.
What was the last one?
Apple and those guys.
It was 1918. It was early 20th century. We got hit with a pretty big EMP, but at the time, nobody used technology. The teletype went out. That was the biggest concern.
I'm sorry. What caused an EMP?
The sun.
Oh, really? Like a flare or something?
Like a flare, yeah. A solar flare caused an EMP. And it blew out like the teletypes, but at that time we weren't really using technology,
Yeah.
It wasn't
that would devastate the global economy.
To a terrible,
alarming degree.
More than what we're encountering today. Obviously this is
that's crazy. I did not know about this.
Yeah. I started reading about it. I can't remember the name. My God, it's going to drive me nuts. But we had an incident where it blew out a lot of the early
like a solar flare. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and just thinking about what kind of havoc it could wreak. I mean, when you were telling me your house got struck by lightning, it's on a small scale, obviously, but just
I was standing in the doorway when it happened. I could tell you, I thought the world was ending. My vision flashed white, like I lost sight of everything in my circle. It was just bright white. Yikes. I thought like an atom bomb had gone off. It was unbelievable.
I was going to ask you. I mean, listen, in this climate, in this world, it could be anything. It could have been the aliens.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Russians are coming.
The Russians are here. Funny. The aliens landed.
Red Dawn is occurring.
Oh my God, I don't even have words anymore to anything. But it's I don't know. We'll see what happens. Xbox got a new dashboard, Paul.
A lot of stuff with Xbox. So, how do we even start with this? So the Xbox dashboard is something that's probably going to debut with the Xbox Series X and Series S, which they have not announced yet. But so that means, by November. But the interesting thing about it to me, it looks nice. It's kind of modern and an evolution of the existing dashboard, but they're bringing it everywhere. So it's going to come to Xbox One. It's going to come to the Xbox app on Windows and on mobile as well. And so wherever you access Xbox, you're going to get the same basic UI.
Yeah.
And that's nice. I mean, Microsoft is not really known for consistency, but I mean, it looks like they're doing it. So it looks nice.
Yeah. Also, it's so funny. I'm reading your show notes for Windows Weekly because I sometimes use that as a cheat sheet. Don't tell Leo. Don't tell Leo.
Yeah.
But I use it as a cheat sheet. But you covered Microsoft Flight Simulator, the new one on the PC. I got to tell you, this is such an impressive piece of software, and how far along this has gone. One of my good friends, Constantine, he's an attorney now, very, very good attorney. Mm-hmm. He was I was at his house. This has to be 97, 96, and he had a Gateway. I think, he had a Gateway 2000. And he had Flight Simulator on that with the whole controller and everything. We used to play Flight Simulator.
Nice.
Looking at it in the last, 20-something years, my God, this is like real military level training, Yeah.
Right.
So impressive. Right. It's very impressive.
I used to play a game, I think it was called Falcon, and it was a flight sim, but it was a fighter jet. I mean, you didn't fight anything, but well, maybe you did. I don't remember, but most of it was just flight simulation. And for me, what that meant was it was really hard to land. But yeah, I if they could combine this with some sort of aerial battle scenario, I mean, I'd be cool. Super interested.
But can you imagine on a large scale with the VR with VR integration for Microsoft? That's.
So there is VR integration coming, and that's going to be interesting. I'm actually hoping to test that. I'm expecting to test that. So that's something I am looking forward to. But even like a big curved display, one of those nice chairs, the controllers you're talking about, like the old fashioned stick and all that stuff. I think that'd be, if you're into this stuff. I mean, I'd almost rather have it be like
videos. Wait, have you gone down that rabbit hole?
Yeah. No, it's amazing.
With people role playing as like
captains and stuff.
as a captain and in flight control and the tower. They communicate with the tower. I think it's fascinating how good some of these guys are.
Yep.
Then I wonder, I'm like, a lot of them probably are pilots to begin with. They have some sort of training, but also there are people that are just fans of this and they get really into it.
Sure.
Which is interesting.
See, I would almost rather use Train Simulator. I like trains.
Are you? Is there a?
I don't have it. I mean, it's out there. I mean,
cattle.
Farm Andrew. I've been driving the Amtrak between Boston and New York City ever since I moved. I just been doing it on my computer.
Yeah. You're still coming to New York for all the events.
Mm-hmm. You just don't know. You don't see me. I just pull in the pen and I turn around and go back.
Yeah, the next HP announcement that's happening here in New York, you don't even have to come. Just load up a Train Simulator, get on the train, and then look, just sit in another room with your laptop, and there you go. You're there. Hysterical. So I have not asked you about TikTok and the scenario, what's happening here. Oracle now is possibly in the mix. A lot changed. ARM, we had discussed the potential ARM sale. Nvidia was I think the last show we did, we were speculating on who could possibly purchase them. I kind of want to touch on some of these backstories.
Right.
I want to ask you about TikTok. Do you think this is Microsoft's ball?
It is very clear that Microsoft wants this company, and I can't understand for the life of me.
I'm going to tell you, Paul,
what they're thinking.
Can I tell you? I'm going to tell you a secret. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you a big secret. I'm very into TikTok. Very into it.
No,
I don't know why.
No.
I don't know why. I downloaded the thing as a joke. Okay. I wanted to see what it was. Then I started viewing it as a joke. My wife and I, we would, like, if we're in bed, we would just scroll. I'm like, oh, look at these idiots. Look at this one. Look at that one. We got a $1.99 donation. Look at this. Thank you, Don, in the chat room. So we started looking at it. And one night, I may or may not have taken an edible. And I think my brain, something clicked, and now it's part of my nightly routine where I just go on TikTok and I just scroll up and I see what people are doing.
Don't misunderstand. I don't mean that it's not like something fun that people. There were 100 million people in the United States, or 100 million, whatever the number is, using this thing. I mean, it's obviously popular. What I mean is, I don't understand why Microsoft wants it. Like, Microsoft does not do well with consumer products.
Ad revenue.
Ad revenue. Microsoft doesn't do good with ad revenue. Twitter can't afford it. Twitter would be the ideal company. If some company from the United States has to buy it, which is ridiculous, but whatever, it should be Twitter. Twitter already runs a social network. They have systems in place for all the policing and nonsense that has to occur. I think it was, Bill Gates called it a poisoned chalice. It'd be a huge mistake for Microsoft. The other day we learned that Oracle, the Oldsmobile of the computer industry, is also looking into this for some reason. Ludicrous. Now, I think what they're looking at is the 100 million people. But here's what I'll say: regardless of its popularity, my concern about TikTok has nothing to do with China or national security, anything like that. I mean, and that stuff is whatever it is. I don't really care. I think the bigger problem is, like, this just feels temporary to me. We've had other quick video service things, haven't we? Vine, isn't that a thing?
Vine was very popular and they shut it down. It didn't shut down due to popularity issues. It shut down because they couldn't figure out how to make money.
Okay.
Which was interesting.
Well,
I do think there is a place for this. I definitely think there's another place for this because the other social networks have been just inundated with nonsense, right? Like Instagram is facing that same issue where it's so much noise on that platform.
Yeah, but why does this will happen on TikTok too? I mean,
and I'm sure it'll happen on TikTok also. The thing about that TikTok I'm very strange when it comes to this, and I try to explain to people I don't like these apps putting me through the algorithm and learning my habits and only showing me things that I would be interested in. I actually
a huge problem on YouTube, right?
It's a huge problem on YouTube. It's a tremendous problem on Reddit, where I no longer use Reddit the way that I used to. I just do it for I do it for the wrestling stuff and I do it for the tech stuff. I don't read the front page of Reddit ever because it assumes I'm only into these two specific things and only shows me those things.
Yeah. This is an age-old problem. We always talk about Amazon. Back in the day, you'd buy a book as a gift for someone, and then you would just be recommended these books that was it was like a menopause book, from my mother or something or whatever, or something semi-related to that, and it was like I get menopause stuff recommended, and it's like this is not what I'm into.
Yeah,
And
you sure? You're not into it?
Yeah. I mean, at the time, I was a crazy kid, but you do it. I looked at an RV video the other day on YouTube, and now it's just apparently there's a whole world of RV stuff out there.
Yeah. Well, YouTube learned that I bought a Mustang, and boy, can I tell you, that's all I have recommendations for on modifying my Mustang. Which
modifying your Mustang.
Listen, I get it. I do think that there's a place for it, but you know what I would love? I would love to be able to turn it off. Like, I would like to say, okay, you know what? Just show me.
I'm not actually interested in this.
Things. I just want to see what people are watching. Don't cater towards me. Cater towards just if I'm just a generic person just logging on for the first time. Because
I had this experience just the other day. I brought up YouTube on some computer or whatever, and I'm looking at the stuff on the front page. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And then I looked up at the corner. I wasn't signed in. I was like, oh, wait, this is what it looks like. Yeah. This is what people are watching,
Yeah. Well, the thing about YouTube is that they really, and let me just, somebody asked me, why do you not want to cater to you? I really, and I'm coming from me, this would sound like a joke, right? Like, if it was anybody else telling you this, you wouldn't find it a joke, but because of who I am, you're going to find this funny. I like personal growth. Okay. I feel like when things are catered to just my interests, that it's assuming that I'm only into, there's no more personal growth for me because it's a vacuum of thoughts. It's the same thought being pushed my way.
That bit of insight is something that escapes 98% of people live on this planet. But yeah, that's a huge problem. The other thing is it's dumb. It's just dumb.
But that's what we're in. That's what we're in right now.
Dumb. Like it's like what it recommends is dumb. So I'll just give you this is an example from this past week. I really like certain stand-up comedians. So I watch a lot of Bill Burr clips or whatever. So one time Bill Burr was on some morning show, and it was terrible actually, but whatever. But then you start getting clips from morning shows.
Yeah, that have nothing to do with comedy.
No, nothing. No, because that's one of the little metadata points. So Bill Burr's one, comedy's one probably, but one of them was this particular show, but one of them was like morning shows. So now I'm getting like Coda and Jenny clips or whatever the hell it's called, and it's like, no,
Coda and
I don't want this. I don't want this. Like, and that's the problem. It's you're not just pigeonholed, which you are. But you're pigeonholed in a way that is not necessarily relevant to you.
And listen, and on the other side, the positive side, like a couple of months ago, like throughout this quarantine, I've gotten really into retro gaming, where I set up a Raspberry Pi and I'm doing emulation. I'm playing a lot of older games, arcade games that I haven't played in God knows how many years, 20 something years, near almost 30 years, are now available that you could play. Like Capcom Series 1 games and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've
discovered a tremendous slew of content creators on YouTube that just talk about this. I would not have been able to do it if their algorithm was broken. I like that side recommendation. I don't like the front page recommendation.
Yeah. Right.
So, the other thing they removed is the trending, to see what's trending, what's in, who are the content creators that are in. There's a major problem with this. I think Reddit has a much larger problem, because it is creating a very toxic way of looking at life. Like by the way, Twitter's issue is the total opposite, because I see way too much stuff I'm not interested in on Twitter.
On Twitter. I wish I could turn that all off. I hate universally that right bar that's, here's what's whatever. I don't want any of it. Like, I have never once been like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Well, it's
for
terrible.
Some reason, did you see that Twitter this week or last week, they added a new feature where you could modify who gets to see your tweets.
Yep.
What is?
I thought this was going to be the greatest thing in the world.
Okay. Okay. So wait, this is great. So you get to do. You could either put it out for everybody, people you follow, or only people you mention. So
by the way, how are those the three?
Those are the three.
Like what? And by the way, how is one of them not? No one can comment.
Or an edit button. How about an edit button?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know how many times I feel like a total idiot because I did a simple typo and the message was sitting there for like 20 minutes and now I can't redo it. I just delete it.
Here's the problem. Look, it's Twitter. I think we're at the point now where everyone should understand that you can't edit it. What I don't like even more than the fact that the typo is sitting out there, it's like Twitter's like a conversation. It's fleeting. You made the comment and it's out in the air and it's gone and we moved on. So maybe you use the wrong tense of a verb or something and no one's going to call you on it. We're just moving on.
Yeah.
But the problem with Twitter is it's sitting there and people are like, I think you meant, here's the correction. It's like, dude, it's Twitter. I can't fix it. So thank you for pointing out my mistake.
The people interpreting what you're saying in the tone that they're reading it.
Yes.
I forgot what I posted. I posted something. That's
always been a problem with the printed word. I mean,
I've been very first time ever, right? Again, I'm not getting political, but I've been very critical of what's happening in New York City on Twitter. Very critical.
Okay.
The things I've been in Manhattan a handful of times the last, I want to say, month. And it breaks my heart being a New Yorker and seeing the city just totally rip apart at the seams. It's bad. It's not great. And the tone that I put it in was just so basic, right? It was just like a basic thought, and it's bipartisan. This is not a left or right issue. It's just, this is my city. I see what's happening.
Andrew, everything is a left or right issue.
I know.
I don't know. Only someone of your bent would ever say something like that.
So the message was a very simple comment. I didn't lean on any side. You know what I got? Mm-hmm. This is what happens. You deserve what happened because you voted for those people. right? I got one. I got that.
Yes.
I got the so obviously alluding that I'm a Democrat and I voted for Democrats and I deserve
That's
this. The other
the
side,
Apple support of you know, same thing.
The other side is the opposite, where I'm being a total right-leaning lunatic and that there's nothing wrong with the city and I'm making this up. Why can't I just not make a political statement? I think. And this is
Andrew, I'm sorry.
Yes,
you're on Twitter. Twitter is a toxic hell stew. There's nothing you can do about it. You can just be there or not be there.
Okay. And we've touched on this a while, and I've wanted to talk about this with you. The discussion of anonymity, right? On the internet. I, for many, many years, championed the concept of anonymity. It protected, for when I was younger. Okay. When I was younger, I was all for this. And the argument that I always gave was, if you are a political whistleblower, you need, or you're, you saw what happened in the Middle East or in the Arab Spring. You want to be able to report something without consequences. So you need anonymity, right?
Okay.
I have now, and I understand those scenarios. You need anonymity. There are many scenarios. This is not a black or white issue. Obviously, there's going to be gray. But I always think if people knew the things that they are saying publicly is automatically linked to them personally, how are they going to behave?
They would not say some of those things. Yeah,
I think many.
This is a problem everywhere
I think
online.
Most won't.
You're describing Xbox Live. You're describing Twitter. You're describing the comments section on any website, including my own. This is a huge problem. If you look, I'm not saying I'm always the most well-behaved person, whether it's on Twitter or on Xbox Live. I can be a total dick. There's no doubt about it. But you'll always know it's me because I use my name. It's my name. It's me. Right? So if you see some guy like teabagging someone in Call of Duty and it says Paul Thurrott over it, yep, you're going to know it's me.
Yeah, you're not using Lord Humongous as your username?
Nope. I'm not. Yeah, it's not some. Yeah, exactly. It's not some scatological name that I've created using a combination of letters and numbers. It's my name. And I feel like there should be a setting where I can say I only want to see I want to see their real names. I don't want to see their stupid name. I don't want to see their religious, political, blah blah blah, whatever, like the thing they put in front of their name in a game or whatever, because they whatever that's called. I don't want to see their stupid animations. I don't want to see their hand drawings. And if they choose not to allow anyone to see that information, they shouldn't be allowed in the game I'm playing in. I don't want to be in that game.
I've totally gone backward. And listen, I know I'm going to get comments saying, well, I understand the argument for anonymity, but on a large scale, where the things that I see now, it's terrible. It really. It's
a loss of civility. It really is.
It really is. It is a loss of civility.
Look, I'm not saying like we all know jerks. I mean, I'm not saying that nobody would ever walk up to me in a bar and say the shit to me that they say to me online. I mean, some people probably would.
But there's a consequence, right? And what's a consequence?
Yeah,
they could get their ass beat. That's a consequence.
I mean, who knows? I mean, but when you are anonymous, your ability to be that asshole is exponentially higher, and it is obviously abused. It's always abused every single day. Before this call, I had an hour-long work meeting about this very topic, the toxicity that occurs in the comment section on my website. I mean, people are. I think COVID has made it worse. I mean, people are insane. What's the definition? The definition of a bully, right, is someone who picks on other people and then gets overly sensitive when you pick on them. Right? Like that's what a bully really is. And that's what people are when they're anonymous online. They're just bullies. Because there's no consequences.
Well, I'll give you a great example. Someone that I know works in the restaurant industry, right? And she posted how her restaurant's open in Long Island. The restaurant is operating and it's fine.
Yeah.
50% occupancy, and they're doing the proper steps, and they're doing this, they're doing that. And all of a sudden, she started getting attacked on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram by this random person. Just in the business, talking about how bad the food is. It was a competitor that wasn't open because they were across the borderline of between New York City and Long Island. And they were so angry that they created fake accounts and they started attacking these people. And you know what? They wouldn't have done it if they knew get back to them. They ended up finding out who they were, obviously, because everything is traceable. And just, but it's still it went on for like 2-3 months.
Yeah, that's we're not going to. I don't see how we fix any of this.
I know.
Yeah, it's depressing.
I know it's very depressing, but you know we'll figure it out. So let me just find here. Sorry, Paul. I lost my notes. Was there anything I missed? And I will do what to talk.
Is there anything you missed? I don't know, dude.
Yes. ARM. The latest on ARM being sold by Softbank. Looks like Nvidia, but I don't know. Do you think that's going to be a? I think that's going to be a mess.
Honestly, I guess so. First of all, Softbank just reported their first decent quarter in a couple of years or something. So, part of the reason they wanted to divest themselves of ARM was to kind of shore up some stuff. I think ARM is a great long-term play. That to me is one of the assets they should just keep. But yeah, I mean, Nvidia might be an interesting choice. I mean, honestly, there are some of the companies that might be a good choice just aren't interested or have never expressed any interest. So it's kind of hard to say. But like, I don't know. Everyone who has a pet peeve about anything will have some theory about Microsoft should buy them, Intel should buy them, blah, 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 whoever. Apple should buy. Apple has already said they have zero interest in it. I mean,
Apple has a much different plan for their chips.
Yeah. I mean, Apple doesn't want to license things to people. To companies. They want to sell things to people. They're not going to license anything. So I don't know. I mean, I'll just say, Nvidia is one of the companies that has kind of emerged as a potential buyer. They're going to need some financial help with some investors and stuff. But yeah, I mean, and actually, so the one thing that's happened since I wrote about this last is I looked at Nvidia's financial filing for the most recent quarter previously to this. And they were getting very close to the point where their PC gaming business was about to be outstripped by their data center business. And we don't think about this stuff a lot from like a personal technology perspective, but I really think the future of ARM, as good as it is on mobile and all that stuff, I think there's a bigger play for them in the in the cloud, for data centers in the cloud, for the same reasons, efficiency and so forth. Well, since that happened, and since we know that Nvidia is now interested in ARM, they released a more recent financial quarter, and sure enough, for the first time ever, Nvidia made more money from data centers than it did from PCs.
Oh, very interesting.
And that's where that company's going. It's happened to Intel, or I should say it's probably going to happen to Intel. This is a great future for ARM, and it kind of aligns neatly with where Nvidia is. So there'll be some portion of it that's personal technology, and a bigger portion of it that is cloud-based data centers. And I think ARM would be a good fit for that company if that. If Softbank ever decides to get rid of it.
Yeah, I'm curious what they end up doing with it if they do buy. I mean, obviously, listen, I could kind of see where they're headed, but great asset for them to have for that company. Yeah. And if they could pull this through, that's going to make the value of that company much larger than it is today because ARM is everywhere.
Yeah. And that's not gonna change. Like that's not gonna change. It's going to get even better.
Yeah. All right, Paul. Nice quick show here today. We're back, by the way, back from summer vacation. School's back in session, guys. By the way, my wife is at a school that she works for, and she's telling me that going back in New York City public schools to go back to school, it's going to be a total disaster. This is not going to work. Oh, yeah. It does not make any sense how this is going to happen. It's either, unfortunately, I think the only way this is going to work is going to be all or nothing. That's the only. It is.
There's going to be a lot of nothing. I can tell you that. And the best case scenario for any school situation this year is going to be if through some miracle you could make it to Thanksgiving. But I don't think that's going to happen. Almost.
I mean that. But here, I'm just going to put this out there. She found out that they're going to have like blue days. If you're a blue student, then you only go Mondays and Wednesdays. If you're a yellow student, you go Tuesdays. If you're a red student, whatever, they're doing like color coding, right?
Yeah.
And somebody said, okay, well, what if I'm green and I drop my kid off on a blue day? What happens? And they said, oh no, we have a designated classroom for them that they go and they sit in. So,
right.
But okay, are they being taught? No, they're not being taught. So they're using a holding room for them. So,
dude, I mean, this is unprecedented.
You know what's going to happen?
There's no plan for this.
There's no plan. You know what's going to happen in New York City? People are going to drop their kids off and say, your problem, and take off.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens.
Disaster. Well, disaster.
It's not gonna be good.
No, not good. All right, guys. That's it for this week. If you're watching live, stay tuned. We're gonna do What to Talk, and I'm gonna talk to Paul about my midlife crisis and how I bought a muscle car at the age of 36
You're a little young
years
for a
old.
midlife crisis, by the way.
36 is midlife, no? Average lifespan, 73 years old, technically.
Oh boy. Okay.
Technically. Oh, you have to know. You know what I'm blasting? I was blasting Van Halen, Metallica. I got the white fuzzy dice hanging in the car now. Oh,
you should look at the Family Guy episode where I don't know if Peter got a muscle car or something, but someone told him to read 1984 when he bought the album 1984 by Van Halen, and then it's like a Van Halen episode, and like a police officer pulls him over for being awesome because he's listening to Panama in the car.
You got Hoffa Teacher going. All right, guys. Stay tuned. Hang out for What to Talk. If not, if you're listening to the podcast, do us a favor. Go subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/whattotalk. Fund us as little as $1 per episode gets you access to our bonus shows that we record, along with each and every show that we do. Until next time, be strong and take care.